This is one of my pour over drippers. This is the Kalita Wave 185. It's made for 3 to 4 cups of coffee, all stainless steel, and it has these 3 tiny holes at the bottom in this triangular pattern. The filter, or I should say that the coffee maker itself takes special Kalita filters, which really just look like cupcake holders or cupcake paper. And this is, like I said, or I don't know if I said it yet, but probably my favorite one right now. It does produce a nice cup of coffee for sure, and I would recommend using a coarser grind with this, whereas the Hario, which I'm about to show you in a minute, could benefit from a finer grind, and I'll show you why. Okay, here is the ubiquitous Hario V60. This is an all glass version, so very elegant looking. One single and relatively large hole at the bottom that has this kind of flower pattern, and it's also made in Japan, just like the Kalita, but requires a finer drip grind because the water is going to pass through a little bit too quickly and not extract all of the greatest parts of your cup of coffee if the water isn't making contact for long enough. So finer grinds for this, just a matter of preference. I mean, you should still be aiming for the same amount of time when brewing the coffee, probably in the 3 to 4 minute range. But in order to do that, you're going to need to use a slightly finer grind. Okay, this guy is a Sileo pour over dripper, and it is also, I think it's porcelain actually. So we've seen glass, we've seen stainless steel, and this is porcelain, not Portland. Probably found in Portland from time to time, but I digress. Also 3 holes at the bottom in a different pattern from the Kalita right across, and they're slightly larger than the Kalita, but certainly smaller than the Hario. So this is more in line with something that Blue Bottle would use. It's this conical filter, kind of like the Bon Mac, which is also used in Japan. Okay, so if you've spent any time in the coffee world, you've seen this guy before. This is the Arobi AeroPress, same company / inventor that made the Arabi, I guess is how they say it, Arabi Frisbee, popular toy in the 90s. And this has a cult following, to say the least. There are World AeroPress Championships now, where people actually compete to brew the best coffee they possibly can with this. And given its versatility and how many different ways there are to brew with it, you can brew it inverted, upside down, or right side up. There's really a million different ways you can make coffee with this, and it's a lot of fun and incredibly affordable. I think about 25 bucks. So this is all plastic, which is a deal breaker for many, but it is BPA free plastic, and it is made in the USA, unlike many of these coffee makers. So this is a really popular option if you aren't already familiar with it, and one that I use probably more frequently than the rest. This is a 3-cup Bialetti Mocha Express. It is a mocha pot, stovetop espresso maker, but it isn't espresso, it's mocha coffee is what we'll call it. It comes apart like that. Here's the filter basket where the coffee goes, reservoir for the water. You put it over your stovetop, and then you heat on low heat. The water comes up and then passes through the ground coffee and then brews into here. It is all aluminum, so There are certainly people who have concerns about that. I'm not one of them. Produces a really rich cup of coffee, highly concentrated, that will likely have to be diluted depending on what your taste preferences are. This is the beautiful and very popular Chemex 6-cup coffee maker. Comes in a whole bunch of different sizes, all glass, USA made, Massachusetts. Has this wood collar, which is cool, and it also has its own special filters that are pretty thick paper, meant to filter out more of the oils and sediment that you could find in, say, a French press coffee. So the idea behind this is that it's supposed to produce a far less bitter cup and in a very simple way. And it's probably the best looking coffee maker out there, making it a really popular option, under 40 bucks. And you can actually find it in the Museum of Modern Art. Okay, this is my final pour over dripper, I swear. This is the Bonavita Immersion Dripper. And it's just like, well, I shouldn't say just like, because it has one hole. So it's similar to the Hario, kind of a cross between the Hario and the Cilio that I showed you earlier. Ceramic is what it's made of, I believe, and this little lever at the bottom will stop the flow of coffee. So you can steep your coffee for as long as you want, kind of like with a French press, and that allows you to create kind of a fusion between pour over and French press. And this little top is to, I guess, keep the steam in and help the coffee steep better, but not one that I use too frequently. This is the cold brewer, or at least part of it. Some of the other parts are up in the cabinet and I'm not going to bring them out. But this is what I use to make cold brewed coffee from time to time, at least slow drip cold brewed coffee. And the water basically is held up in this upper region and drips onto the coffee bed down here at about a drip per second, or you can adjust that to be faster or slower. And then the coffee concentrate, the cold brew coffee concentrate, ends up in the bottom of this carafe. It's all glass, but very thin glass. And although I believe it's assembled, I mean, there's not much to assemble, but I think all parts are made in China. And this was a Kickstarter backed project about a year ago. Pricey though, around at least $70 these days, I believe. This is the current gram scale I'm using, and it's an AWS American Way system. Is LB3000. This actually attaches like this, but I have detached it so it stays flat. And it's got a nice backlit screen, which you can turn on or off. So that's kind of cool. But the main reason I wanted to get it is for the 1/10 of a gram measurements, which you can, by the way, switch to ounces, T, I don't know what that is. So even units of measurement that you may not understand, like me, or maybe you do, because you're smarter. This is my old scale, and it's a pretty cheap one, I think about $13. The AWS that I showed you before is, I think, about $25. So it's about a $10 price difference. This one, in my opinion, is not bad, but significantly less sophisticated. You can't get the measurements of a 1/10 of a gram, but it does have kilograms, ounces, and even pounds as units of measurement. So it's a really simple scale. This is the tare button. The words were here before, you can't see them anymore, but it's really straightforward and frankly fine for beginner pour over, or even if you're just weighing out your beans, this will certainly do. I used it for years and it's still holding up quite nicely. And this is the tamper I'm using. It is an S Pro flat base calibrated tamper. So what does it mean by calibrated? Well, 30 pounds of pressure when you press down it will click. So the 30 pounds is just kind of an arbitrary number, but it will get you consistent results in terms of tamping pressure, and the idea is to just eliminate that variable when you're making espresso. So you can worry about more important things like grind and ground coffee distribution, shot weight, pull time, etc., etc. So once again, that's S Pro. Quite expensive though. I mean, this is, I think, at least $90. So I wouldn't recommend going this route if you're just getting into espresso. This is more for somebody who's pulling shots on a regular basis and just wants to make it a little bit easier on themselves. Okay, this is my portable bird grinder. It is a Hario Slim Mill ceramic bird grinder, and you can adjust the grind by turning this little, I like to call it a wing nut. Takes a really long time to grind your coffee, especially if it's on the fine side, but it's a great option if you want to keep your coffee as fresh as possible while on the road. You could even use it at home. I mean, I used it for 2 years, which probably cost me about a year of my life in total, but a great grinder nonetheless at a great value. And here's my all-purpose grinder, the Breville Smart Grinder Pro. It's got this cool LCD screen. You can adjust the grind here on the side. It shows you the different types of coffee brewers that associate with the different grinds. It's a stepless grinder technically, even though it shows steps. It has this removable grounds tray that's magnetic. It has a nice 1 pound hopper that's easy to remove. And I absolutely love this grinder. It's a pricier one, but I think one of the best value grinders out there, as it works great for both pour over and espresso and everything else that comes before and in between. Okay, this is the thermometer I use by ThermoWorks, and it is the RT600C. It's got that little sleeve, and it takes about 5 seconds to read temperature, and it has this cool feature where you can see the max and min temperature. So if you stuck your thermometer in after 5 seconds and then it reached the apex of the temperature and then started to drop, you can quickly refer to the highest temperature by just pressing this right here. And you can see right there it says 75 is the max that it has recorded since it's been out of the sleeve. So a very affordable thermometer by a great company. I think this is about 20 bucks. This is my handy dandy pour over gooseneck kettle. It's the Bonavita variable temperature kettle. You can set the temperature to whatever you want. You can hold that temperature, so if you want to keep it on boiling, it will keep reboiling in the water until you remove it from the base here. You can look at Fahrenheit or Celsius as long as the thing is on, and this gooseneck helps you control your pour. So this is a 1 liter version. And last but not least is my auto drip coffee maker, the Brazen Plus. And I use this SCAA certified coffee maker basically every time I'm too lazy to do a manual method. And it's also great for anybody else who's in your household that isn't as big a coffee enthusiast. So my girlfriend uses this quite a bit, especially when we have guests over. It's good for making large batches.